The atmosphere on Axion Prime was heavy, a planet scarred by relentless war. Dust storms swept across the barren plains as the Xarnath Legion disembarked from their massive drop ships, their hulking forms silhouetted against the burning red sky. These mercenaries, towering reptilian warriors with scales harder than steel, had crushed countless civilizations underfoot. Their reputation alone was enough to instill terror. Yet here they stood, awaiting orders from their leader, Commander Drexos. Drexos strode to the front of his legion, his deep, guttural voice commanding silence. "Brothers, today we remind this galaxy why the Xarnath are unmatched. Our prey is the coalition of free systems, cowering in their mountain fortress. They think terrain and stubbornness can protect them. They will learn otherwise." A roar erupted from the ranks, confidence palpable. But as the briefing continued, an unusual name emerged. "The Dominion warns us of humans in the area," Drexos said, a faint sneer twisting his lips. "They call them the Black Shadows. Special forces, they claim. Elite. Dangerous." A ripple of laughter swept through the soldiers. Humans were frail compared to the Xarnath. Smaller, weaker, laughably primitive in physiology. The idea of them posing a threat was absurd. Still, Drexos couldn't ignore the Dominion's caution. A Dominion officer, a wiry insectoid with compound eyes, stepped forward, his voice buzzing. "The humans, they are unlike any enemy you've faced. Underestimate them, and you'll regret it." Drexos dismissed the officer with a wave of his clawed hand. Fear-mongering, he muttered, "We've crushed species far mightier than humans. Let them send their black shadows. We'll show them the futility of resistance." As the Xarnath marched toward the coalition base, the landscape grew ominously quiet. The terrain was rugged, rocky outcroppings casting long shadows in the fading light. The soldiers remained confident, though an undercurrent of unease began to creep in. Drexos noticed it in the twitching tails, the subtle glances exchanged among his men. They were battle-hardened, yet something about this mission felt off. The Dominion officer's words echoed in Drexos's mind. He shook them off. "Focus," he growled, his voice cutting through the silence. "The coalition hides because they are weak. We are Xarnath. We do not falter." As night fell, the Xarnath reached a vantage point overlooking the supposed location of the coalition base. Scanners showed no movement, no signs of life. Drexos frowned. It was too quiet. No defensive energy shields, no patrols, nothing but the eerie stillness of the mountains. His instincts, honed through decades of warfare, screamed that something was wrong. "Prepare to advance," he ordered, though doubt gnawed at him. His soldiers readied their weapons, eager to engage. But as they descended into the valley, a faint, almost imperceptible sound reached Drexos's ears. A low, rhythmic hum. He couldn't place it, but it sent a shiver down his spine. The hum grew louder, joined by the whine of electronics and the faint crackle of static. Drexos's hand tightened on his weapon. Whatever awaited them in the shadows, it was nothing they had faced before. The valley was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of distant stars. Drexos signaled his troops forward, their heavy steps muffled by the dirt and loose gravel beneath them. The Xarnath Legion moved with practiced precision, their confidence unshaken despite the unease gnawing at their leader. But as they advanced, the faint hum they'd heard earlier intensified, vibrating through the air like an invisible pulse. Without warning, chaos erupted. From the shadows, small, sleek drones appeared, silent and deadly. They darted through the air with inhuman speed, their cloaked forms shimmering like ghosts as they unleashed precise energy bursts. In an instant, the Xarnath's front line was in disarray. Heavy artillery units collapsed, their targeting systems fried by electromagnetic pulses. Drexos roared orders, his voice cutting through the cacophony. The Xarnath scrambled to regroup, firing blindly into the darkness, but the drones were too fast, too elusive. A soldier beside Drexos fell, his armor scorched by a pinpoint plasma shot. The commander's claws tightened around his weapon as he scanned the battlefield, searching for the source of the attack. Then he saw them, emerging from the shadows like wraiths, the human special ops unit moved with an unsettling grace. Their black exosuits seemed to blend seamlessly with the environment, their outlines flickering as if they were only partially there. The suits were more than armor. They were weapons in themselves, bristling with advanced tech that the Xarnath couldn't begin to comprehend. The humans struck with surgical precision. One moment, a Xarnath soldier was preparing to fire. The next, he was disarmed and incapacitated, his weapon reduced to molten slag. The humans worked as a single entity, their movements perfectly synchronized, as if they shared one mind. Drexos watched in disbelief as a squad of his finest warriors fell without landing a single blow. The Xarnath's natural instinct was to fight harder, to rely on brute strength and overwhelming force. But against the Black Shadows, these tactics were useless. The humans exploited every weakness, every hesitation. Their attacks calculated to dismantle the Xarnath's morale as much as their ranks. And then came the voices. Distorted and echoing, they filled the air, speaking in the Xarnath's native tongue. "You are outmatched," the voices taunted, each word laced with icy confidence. "Your strength is meaningless here." Holographic projections flickered to life, creating the illusion of more humans than there were, surrounding the Xarnath on all sides. Panic began to spread through the ranks. Drexos could see it in their eyes, the fear, the disbelief. His soldiers, who had faced countless battles without flinching, were unraveling. The Xarnath prided themselves on their resilience, yet here they were, faltering under the weight of an enemy they couldn't even fully see. Drexos gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. He ordered a retreat, knowing it was the only way to regroup and reassess. As his forces fell back, he couldn't shake the image of the Black Shadows, silent, unrelenting, and utterly beyond his understanding. For the first time in his career, Drexos felt the sting of doubt. The cavern was dimly lit, the flickering glow of portable lamps casting long shadows over the gathered Xarnath soldiers. They sat in clusters, their massive frames hunched and their voices subdued. For the first time Drexos could remember, his warriors were shaken. Their confidence, once unshakable, had been fractured. He moved among them, overhearing snippets of their hushed conversations. "They weren't like any enemy we've faced," one soldier muttered. Another nodded grimly. "It's as if they knew what we'd do before we even moved." The whispers spread, carrying an air of disbelief and fear. Drexos clenched his fists, his claws digging into his palms. He found himself pacing near the center of the cavern, replaying the battle in his mind. The humans hadn't fought like warriors, they'd fought like predators. Calculating, precise, and relentless. It was as though they had dissected the Xarnath's tactics long before the fight began. It wasn't just their technology, though that was leagues beyond anything the Xarnath possessed. It was their ability to adapt, to exploit every flaw, every misstep. His thoughts were interrupted by the Dominion officer, who had managed to retreat with them. The wiry insectoid approached cautiously, his movements skittish. "Commander Drexos," he began, his voice low but insistent. "Now you see why the Dominion feared them." Drexos turned sharply, his gaze piercing. "Explain," he demanded. The officer hesitated, his mandibles clicking nervously before he spoke. "Humans are unique. They come from a world where survival was a constant struggle. Their species evolved on a planet of predators, in conditions that would crush most life. They are not the strongest, nor the fastest, but they are the most adaptable." Drexos growled. "Adaptable? What does that mean when they're smaller, weaker, and fewer in number?" The officer straightened slightly, as if the question was one he had anticipated. "It means they fight differently. They don't rely on strength alone. They use their minds, their ingenuity, and their willingness to do whatever is necessary. They don't fight wars, they solve them." Drexos said nothing, the officer's words settling over him like a heavy weight. His mind drifted to the voices during the battle, the taunts in their language, the psychological warfare. The humans hadn't just attacked his soldiers physically. They had attacked their spirit. As if on cue, the humans' distorted voices returned, broadcast over a frequency only the Xarnath could hear. "Xarnath Legion, The message began, calm but firm. You do not have to die for the Dominion's greed. Stand down. Leave this place. Live to fight another day. The cavern fell silent as the words echoed. The message was not a threat but a statement of fact. Carried no malice, only certainty. Drexos felt his soldiers' eyes on him, waiting for his response. He stared at the device broadcasting the message, his mind racing. This wasn't just a battle anymore. It was a test, a confrontation with an enemy who challenged not only his strength but his pride, his understanding of war itself. He drew a deep breath, turning to his second-in-command. "We will meet them," he said finally. His voice carried the weight of a decision that would change everything. Drexos approached the agreed meeting point with measured steps, his second-in-command at his side. Behind them, the Xarnath forces remained hidden, watching but not advancing. The air was tense, heavy with the potential for violence. Drexos's claws twitched at his sides, his instincts screaming at him to prepare for an ambush, but he silenced them. This moment required discipline, not brute strength. Ahead, the humans stood in a small formation, their black exosuits glinting faintly under the pale light of the planet's moons. At their center was their leader, a figure smaller than Drexos had expected. Her presence, however, was anything but diminutive. She exuded a calm authority, her helmet's visor reflecting the Xarnath commander's approach. Drexos stopped a few paces away, towering over the human. He studied her silently for a moment, then spoke. "You fight like no species we've ever faced," he admitted, his voice low but steady. "What are you?" The human leader tilted her head slightly, her voice cool and even. "We're survivors, Commander. And we understand something many species overlook. War isn't just about strength. It's about knowing when to fight and when not to." Drexos's jaw tightened. "Is that what this is? A lesson? You think we're too primitive to understand your tactics?" Her reply was immediate, but without a trace of arrogance. "This isn't about superiority. It's about survival, yours specifically. You were hired to fight someone else's war, to bleed for their ambition. But look at what's happened. Your soldiers are shaken. Your confidence is broken. And we've only just begun." The bluntness of her words stung, but Drexos couldn't deny their truth. He shifted his stance, crossing his arms over his broad chest. "And what would you have me do? Abandon the contract? Flee like cowards?" The human leader took a step closer, her tone softening. "I would have you live. Your soldiers don't deserve to die for a cause that isn't theirs. This war isn't about you, Commander. It's about the Dominion's greed. Walk away now, and you preserve your strength for battles that matter." Drexos stared at her, his mind racing. The logic was sound, but it grated against everything he had been taught, everything the Xarnath valued. Honor, loyalty, strength. To retreat now would feel like betrayal, yet the alternative was a pointless slaughter. "You could have destroyed us," he said finally. "You had the chance, but you didn't take it. Why?" The human's visor tilted up slightly, revealing just enough of her face to show a faint smile. "Because we don't fight to destroy. We fight to protect. And sometimes the best way to protect is to offer a choice." Drexos fell silent, the weight of her words settling over him. He thought of his soldiers, their fear and confusion, their loyalty to him despite everything. He thought of the Black Shadows, their precision and restraint. And he thought of the Dominion, whose demands had led them to this moment. Finally, he turned to his second-in-command. "Signal the troops. We're leaving." The other Xarnath hesitated for a moment, then nodded. As Drexos began to walk away, he glanced back at the human leader. "You've earned my respect, Captain. But don't think for a moment that we won't meet again." She nodded, her tone as steady as ever. "I look forward to it, Commander." As the Xarnath retreated, Drexos felt a strange sense of relief, mingled with the sting of defeat. He knew this decision would be questioned, even challenged, but he also knew it was the right one. The humans had taught him something no battle ever had. Strength wasn't just about power. It was about purpose.